Welcome to episode 11 of the Goldenberg Destiny Project. In the previous episode, we spoke about the development of paganism, how it happened, how gradually the connection with God was weakened and finally severed, and the world was pagan. Now, this episode, I'd like to talk about paganism itself. If you ask people, what defines a good person? Most people will say, I mean, it's not very scientific, but I've asked many people this question, and by far, the answer that I get most is a person who helps others. A person who helps other people. Really, in the pagan world, if you ask the pagan, what's a good person? He wouldn't say a person that helps other people. He would say a person who's brave on the battlefield, who works hard to provide for his family, who's loyal to his comrades. But if you ask him to help others as that being altruistic, that should be defines a good person? No. For instance, if a person would come to a pagan, a person that he doesn't know, a person from a different country maybe, he comes to a pagan and he says to him, look, I'm very sick. I need an operation, a very expensive operation, and I don't have any money. So I'm trying to raise some money. I should be able to have this operation to save my life. Can you give me something? Could you help me out? The pagan would say to him, look, I worked hard for this money. It's my money. I earned it. I don't know you. You're not my family. You're not my friend. You're not my neighbor. You don't come from my town. Why should I give it to you? Why? You're telling me that you're sick and you may die? Am I responsible for that? Did I make you sick? It has nothing to do with me. So if you're going to die, you're going to die. It has nothing to do with me. Why should I give you money that I earned to give it to you? Now, does it make sense? Actually, it does. It makes sense. Why should he give him the money? It has nothing to do with him. He didn't cause him anything. So it's another human being, and he should feel, be kind to him and merciful and give him his own money. Why? The answer is because the Torah, when in the ancient world, introduced a radical idea. The idea of halachta b'drachav. You should walk in the ways of Hashem. You should emulate God's ways. Mahu racham v'atar racham. Just as God is merciful, you should be merciful to other people, even though it has nothing to do with you. It's not your responsibility. It's nobody close to you. The mercy in itself is a value. It's altruistic. There's nothing you will gain from it, and there's nothing to do with you. That is a radical idea. And in the pagan world, this idea was not known. The famous cities in Canaan were Sodom, Amorah, Sodom and its four, I don't remember, the Admah, Tzvoim, but the five cities of Sodom. What was Sodom? What was it? Evil people, very evil people. What did they do? People came and they wanted to be guests, and they didn't let them come. If you didn't come not in the town, they didn't let them come. Mishnah Ovid says that a person who says, Shali, Shali, Shalach, Shalach, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. That is Midas Sodom. That is what the people of Sodom said. What's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. What do you want from me? Why do you want mine? That's what the people said. That was the Shita, that was the way the people of the pagan world thought. People in Sodom took it to to great extremes, whatever the measure says, what they used to do to make sure people didn't come and didn't test their lack of mercy, so to do all kinds of sadistic things. Okay, that was really taking it to an extreme. Geist, the word Geist, as defined by Friedrich Hegel, is a general consciousness, a single state of mind. That's called the Geist, and the zeitgeist of the pagan world was the zeitgeist of the ancient world was paganism. That was the Geist. In our times, we also have the reappearance of paganism. I call that paleo-paganism, which means old paganism. In our times, we have Neopaganism. And I write in my book, The Hestival Bible Trial, I write about the connection of white supremacy and Neopaganism. You can go to the website, RabbiReinman.com. It's in the early chapters of the book, and they are posted on the website, so you could read them on the website. What is the idea of, at greater length, of what is the idea of Neopaganism? In the 20th century, one of the most influential books, among the most influential books of the 20th century, were Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged, two books that were written by a woman, a Jewish woman named Elisa Rosenbaum, was born in Russia, and she came to America, and she wrote books under the name Ayn Rand. Very, very influential books. And the books presented a philosophy called objectivism. Objectivism means that rational selfishness is the highest moral purpose in life. A person should take care of his own needs. Don't worry about the needs of others. This is ultra conservatism. In the political world, this is like extreme ultra conservatism. We're against any kind of social safety nets. We don't care of the old, we don't care of the sick, don't care of nothing. Just take care of yourself, and if you take care of your family, and you take care of your friends, that's all part of selfishness, because you need your people around you. You can't stand on your own. You need your help of other people, so you have to be good to them. They should be good to you. But it's all about taking care of your own selfish needs. This was neo-paganism. Nazism is really very strong neo-paganism. Hitler wrote a very famous quotation, but I'll say it. I'll read it anyway. The struggle for world domination is between me and the Jews. All else is meaningless. The Jews have inflicted two wounds on the world: circumcision for the body and conscience for the soul. I come to free mankind from their shackles. And it's not only the Jews. He also said, historically speaking, the Christian religion is nothing but a Jewish sect. After the destruction of Judaism, the extinction of Christian slave morals must follow logically. It wasn't only against the Jews, it was against the Jewish idea. The Jewish people embody the Jewish idea. So he wanted to kill all the Jews. But the Christians also, followed the Jewish idea. He's not going to kill all the Christians, but at least he should free them from their morals. He was against any kind of morality, any kind of caring for other people, and he was against the idea of a God that issues laws to people. This was Nazism. There are differences between paleo-paganism and neo-paganism, and these like two that we just spoke about. We'll discuss those differences when we get to the 20th century. Right now, I want to focus on old paganism. Let's imagine that the world was invaded by an alien race from some distant star. And they invade the Earth, and they take over the Earth, and they are much, much smarter than we are, much stronger than we are, much more technologically advanced. You just can't fight with them. You have to give in. We submit to their power. So we do that. We submit to their power. What else can we do? What happens to us when we submit to their power? Right now, we have on the Earth, we have these aliens who are, they have all the main buildings and the bases and everything, and we're just living there at their toleration. They let us live here. What happens to us? What happens to us is that our own mentality, our whole sense of ourselves changes. Till now, before these aliens came, we were at the pinnacle of creation. We were human beings, smart, powerful, with a spirit and a soul, and not always so good, but sometimes, but at least with the potential of being really, really good. And we were like a higher being. But once we are subjugated by a being even higher than us, that changes how we view ourselves. Now we are just slaves. We're just a subject race. We're slaves. And we have a different view of ourselves. Now the Gemara says, Gittin, Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph, the Gemara says, Abda behefkera nichalei. What does that mean? That means that you cannot assume that a slave wants to go free. I mean, probably most of them do, but without asking the slave, you can't assume that he wants to go free. Because once he's a slave, once he becomes a slave, then he's accustomed to a life without responsibility, without moral responsibility. He can be promiscuous. There's no restrictions on his self-indulgence. He's just like a higher form of animal, and he lives just to survive, just to take care of his needs. And if he's free, then he becomes a free person. He has to aspire to reach higher levels, to become intellectual, to become spiritual, and this way, he's comfortable. That's where he is, because his situation of being a slave has placed him not necessarily a slave many generations. Even a slave who was like captured as a prisoner of war and sold into slavery. Even such a slave right now, but after he's been a slave for a while, he becomes beaten down, and now he has a different view of himself. The ancients, they viewed the gods as an alien superior race. I mean, alien not coming from a star. They live here, but they call them the god race. The god race means they were basically, as it developed, in the beginning, of course, they thought that the sun represented God, but then as things developed, and that all these different gods that came up, and all these idols and different things, and many gods, then the view of the gods was different. The view of the gods were, now they lost connection with the Shema Nichbel Banoira, they lost connection with the name of God, they knew nothing of God. The gods were not his servants, they were just there for themselves. They were an alien race of gods, I call them the god race. And they were invisible and immortal, but other than that, they were not spiritual. Other than that, they were like material beings. You just couldn't see them, and they didn't die. The mythologies developed, especially Greek mythology and other mythologies, Babylonian mythologies. The gods, they fought with each other, and they were jealous, and they were looking for advantages, and they had children, and they were all these different kinds of things, and and they had their own world, the gods, and the people were there to appease them and to serve them. So the people lived in the world of the God race. They lived in the world that was dominated by this alien race. And everything became about the God race. Everything. Because of course if you got them upset, they'd throw thunder or lightning at you, and they'd flood you, and they would make sure your crops failed. So you really, really had to be very careful with the gods. But the gods were not, they didn't care about you. They didn't really, they cared about themselves. They cared about each other. So this is, and there were many of them, many. And they all acknowledged that the others existed. They didn't say, like the countries of one god had, this country had certain gods, other country had different gods. They didn't say, oh, our gods exist, your gods don't exist. No, you could have your gods, we have our gods. It was very tolerant. There's always room for more gods and more gods. You know, if they went to war, so the gods were fighting with each other. And if one country won, so that god became the dominant god in this place, and the other gods were subservient. And sometimes when they came to the country, they used to borrow the existing god and take it for themselves because they liked that god. But it was all about the gods. The world was not about people; it was about the gods. So people were subjugated. They became avdo v'keren nicholei. They lost their sense of morality. They lost their sense of humanity. They became grub. They became bestial. They were, not only were they shali, shalach, but they could rob and they could kill. And of course, they didn't have a sense of morality. So whatever they felt like doing, whatever they needed to do, that's what they would do. So the whole world descended. Paganism took the whole world and lowered it into a very low level of existence, that human beings became like glorified animals with a little bit of intelligence. This was the world into which Avram was born. This was the world to which he was like one of the greatest people that ever lived. He was born into this world, and this gift to the world was Judaism. And next time we'll talk about Avram. Thank you very much.